Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
I try to be a good man, but life keeps beating me down. I never understood.
Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
You're gone down. People think I'm riding high, but I feel so low. I try to be a good man, but life keeps beating me down.
Welcome to the Stadium Pulse, ladies and gentlemen. It is October 14th, 2025. It is a beautiful day here in North Texas, and we have a fantastic show prepared for you today. We are talking Bama, Tennessee. We're talking USC, Notre Dame. We're talking Ole Miss, UGA, and we have our upset pick of the week. Don't mind, let me get a little tilt over. There we go. We are going to have a fantastic show. It's going to happen, and pardon me, voice is still out. We are still looking at a questionable injury report in terms of me, Tegan Randolph, your host today. I apologize I didn't introduce myself. If it is your first time seeing this mustache, I promise you it won't be the last, because I will pop up on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and as well on the Stadium Pulse. My YouTube is From Snap to Whistle, where we only talk about football. Here we only talk about college football, so if you like college football, you found the right place. But I'm still on a questionable play sheet. We turned to probable following my run today. Went a couple miles and feeling a little bit better, but you did not know I was at the Texas A&M game and lost my voice. And so we got our Rudy's barbecue cup full of water to get us through. What a partnership that would be to get Rudy's to sponsor it. I'm a big fan of Rudy's barbecue. If you know about Texas and you know about barbecue, you know Rudy's. So it is a loaded college football slate. That's the truth, that we have a absolutely stacked slate of college football. Especially when we get to this point of the season, it's October, matchups start to get built out. And so with that in mind, why don't we just dive into some predictions? Week 8 is going to be stacked, and so we might as well talk about some of the biggest games that are going to happen. I think the biggest one, or the most impactful one as of right now, is going to be the third Saturday of October, Alabama and Tennessee. What do we think we know with Alabama and Tennessee? This is going to be a major road test for a Tennessee program that defensively is concerning, to say the least. I think you can definitively say this is not a good defense. This is not an elite defense. It's not the defense that we saw last year with JPJ and plenty of other talented players. I understand that they have guys that you know. I think Jermod McCoy comes to mind. He's been out, though. You have plenty of talented players in that secondary, but statistically, they have not been up to par. Not even close. And all of the season, they've only allowed someone to be under 20 points once, and that was East Tennessee State, if my memory is correct. In SEC play, they've allowed over 30 points in every single one of their matchups. It's because they can be exploited on the ground and they can be exploited through the air. It's pick your poison. And what concerns me about Tennessee isn't the fact that the defense is bad. It's the fact that they're having to face Ty Simpson and the three-headed monster, which is this wide receiver core. And they all have different archetypes. Jeremy Bernard could be out of the backfield. He could throw a pass. He is basically their Swiss Army knife. You have Ryan Williams, who could catch a screen pass and run it for 90 yards down the field. You have a 6'4" Isaiah Horton that can go up and catch virtually anything, and they have talented receivers behind them as well. Ty Simpson is a guy that is not making mistakes right now. He is, I think you could say, the leader in the Heisman race. Their offensive line continues to step up. Has it been perfect? No, but it's good enough. And I really begin to worry about Tennessee having to go on the road and find answers against a very good offense. That's not a recipe for success. So I begin to wonder, what is the path for Tennessee to win this game, which is unfortunate that I have to go towards that route, but I think definitively Alabama should win this football game. They are, 9.5-point favorites at home. They seem to be a freight train that cannot be stopped. I thought Missouri was going to get the best of them. And to be fair, Missouri put up a good, valiant effort. We could point to the fact that Bama's defense, especially in their rushing defense, has not been up to snub. But I think what they were able to accomplish in limiting the explosives from Ahmad Hardy, arguably the best running back in the country, I will take that as a win, especially knowing that they were due for a down spot, due for a close game. They had Georgia, they had Vanderbilt, and then you have to go on an 11 a.m. kick to go face off against Missouri, who has been itching for that opportunity. But now you have to turn around and play Tennessee. It's not like Tennessee has gotten any breaks either. I think Alabama offensively is going to get a lot of wins. So if you're Tennessee, what has to be built for you to win this game on the road? Well, first of all, Joey Aguilar cannot be turning the ball over. He still has that gene in him. Has he played well for a guy that basically had, 3 months to learn the Tennessee system and somehow has looked better than most quarterbacks who get a complete offseason? Yes, he's looked great, but he's also had a tendency to put the ball in harm's way. And on the road, you can't really afford that against an Alabama defense that I still think is gelling and learning that they could be a strength of this team. I think guys like Damani Jackson, Dijon Lee, plenty of other players, Bray Hubbard, this secondary seems to be gelling week in and week out, paired with a front seven that has been a little banged up, but guys like Justin Jefferson, Overton are getting stronger by the week. Overton has played him back into a potential first-round pick talks. So you can't be turning the ball over. And then I think your third down success is critical here. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, I could be one of two sides. Either they are very good or very wrong, but I don't think that they're in that tweener area of third down success rate. But I do think Tennessee is going to need to be very efficient. I think that they are going to have to make the most out of their possessions, because if Alabama wants to, they could squeeze this game to a couple possessions where Tennessee has to be highly efficient. And I do think that they're going to be able to find some success running the football. That goes into that third down play. If you're able to convert a 3rd and 4, not by a pass, but by running the football, that makes all the difference. And if you're not turning the ball over, now we're in a game that could be 7-3 points, maybe even got the lead going into the fourth quarter. I think Alabama's offense, you're going to be able to make them have to be able to run the football efficiently. With Jam Miller, they kind of have a 1-2 punch. They could either beat you through the air, they could beat you on the ground. Without Jam Miller, it's a different story. They have not been able to really build out a second identity outside of Ty Simpson just being highly efficient on third down. To the credit of a guy in Ryan Grubb, who has been able to be in his bag as a play caller and be able to create great scenarios and concepts and ways to be able to get short yardage with the extensions of the run. The only concern that I've said for a couple weeks now is what happens when someone shuts that down and you're not able to play hard-nosed football. That's something to note. All of these are aspects that could be tested, but all of them would have to go in the favor of Tennessee if they're able to win this football game. And it's crazy to think about. Tennessee is a made field goal at home against Georgia from being probably a top 5 team in the country, undefeated going into this game. But that's not to say it's been perfect. Obviously, you have Mississippi State. You get out of there. You take those wins every single time on the road, especially in Starkville. Weird things happen with those damn Cowbells. And they got a bunch of breaks to go their way. What's more concerning, even though it's Bobby Petrino's first return as the head coach at Arkansas, what kind of timelines are we living in? You're coming off of a bye, and you are in a dogfight with Arkansas. That's not to say Arkansas can't bite somebody, because they are due for one of those upsets. I'm looking at Texas A&M this weekend. But it's still a little concerning that you had the bye week and you came out flat at home. And that defense still is a major concern, and it's arguably going to run into its biggest test yet with an offense that just continues to roll. I think Bama wins this football game. To a shocker, if you've been watching up to this point, maybe you're watching the medium form content, maybe even a YouTube short. I think Alabama wins this football game pretty comfortably against Tennessee. I think there's too many matchups that Alabama should win. Offensive line versus Tennessee's defensive line, Alabama should win. The quarterback battle, Alabama should win. The wide receivers, Alabama should win. And unless the ghost of Jalen Hyatt reappears and we have Chris Brazell getting 4 touchdowns and 250 yards, I don't really see them finding a way to win this game just because of the makeup of their team going on the road. The defense is just not up to snub here. Now, maybe you get a one-night special like we saw with USC, playing way above what they've been playing up to this point, but I can't really predict that without somehow being a Tennessee fan that is extremely biased and just finding any way to make a square peg go into a circle to fit the agenda. So as basic as it is, sometimes 2 + 2 = 4 in college football, and I'm going to pick Alabama to win. I probably pick Alabama to cover the 9.5 points. I think if they get to a fast start, it's like stepping into a bear trap. You're not going to get your ability to claw back into that game. I think Tennessee would have to start fast. I think they would need some turnover breaks, maybe even a special teams play to break in their way, especially knowing that they're on the road. I think this could be a completely different game if it was at Neyland, because Neyland, I weigh about 3-4 points just because of the impact of that stadium. But it's going to be an uphill battle for Joey Aguilar and the crew. I will say I do think that they find some success running the ball, but not enough to sway into winning the football game. One game down, baby. One game down for the Stadium Pulse. By the way, I want to take a moment. Just look at the numbers, man. It's not easy to grow on YouTube. Any content creator that has had success on this platform will tell you it is not easy to get the snowball built. It's easy to roll it down the mountain once it's going, but to actually get it built and to start, it's very difficult. And you guys have done a fantastic job subbing, liking, leaving interactions, because it's not really about the numbers. It's more building a community to me. And it's been very fun to be able to build that out with you guys, paired with what I've already had built on TikTok. So I just want to appreciate you guys taking that extra time to like, comment, sub, because it does mean a lot to me. Is USC able to replicate what they did last weekend? Because what they did against Michigan was quite impressive. To me, it was the most impressive win of the Lincoln Riley era. Now, you could argue in 2022 when USC, funny enough, beat Notre Dame, that's more impressive. You could talk about maybe LSU last year. You could talk about a lot of different wins, but the reason why this one feels more important to me is it's a sign that they potentially are turning the corner defensively. To stop Michigan, to have them under 125 rushing yards, is a testament to what they've been building for so long in that defensive room. Obviously, they had the bye week in their favor. Justice Haynes did deal with an injury. There's a lot of context you can add to it. But that was a more balanced football team, probably the most balanced version of USC that I've seen during the Lincoln Riley era. And that is potentially something of a sign of things to come. Well, we get an answer real quick, because you're running into a desperate Notre Dame team. Desperate. They're walking the tightrope, folks. They cannot fall here. They are 60,000 feet above the air. They cannot fall, because if they fall, boom, all of a sudden we're talking Marcus Freeman talks with Penn State. All of a sudden we're talking about Notre Dame completely out of the playoff, because I doubt with 3 wins. No, I can guarantee you with 3 losses, they are not making the college football playoff. They cannot mess up here. And so guess what they get to go do? At home, at night, in South Bend. They get to stress test this USC defense for back-to-back weeks. It's one of those things where you had the bye week, you had everything pointed to Michigan. They're coming into your house. They're testing your manhood, your competitive nature. Last year, they couldn't even throw the forward pass, and they were able to run all over you and find a way to win. Now they brought in that 5-star, that $10 million guy, Bryce Underwood. You heard the name? Yeah, he walks into your building, and they think they're just going to be able to do it again. There was a lot of motivation from USC to prove themselves. But it's one thing to do that and be successful. It's another thing to replicate it. And that's the biggest question. That's the question. Apologies, I just bit my tongue. That is the question for this game. Because we could talk about Notre Dame's secondary, which I do think is a fair thing to talk about. whether or not Notre Dame's going to be able to be exploited with Jacoby Lane, Mekhi Lemon, Jaden Maiava, and Lincoln Riley. Because that trio right there, plus Lincoln Riley, could be explosive. We've seen it this year. Mekhi Lemon damn near won the Illinois game himself. That dude is a first-round pick. Jacoby Lane, late day 2 pick. And then Jaden Maiava, you could argue, and I've heard this before, so I'm not the first one that says it. I'm just going to emphasize it. I think he best fits the Lincoln Riley offense for his tenure at USC. More than Miller Moss, more than Caleb Williams. Now, Caleb Williams was successful, went and won a Heisman, but he was also creating out of structure. I think Lincoln would tell you that Maiava plays in his system more than any other quarterback that has been there at USC. And so we talk about potentially exploiting that. I think one thing to consider here, and it's a huge factor to the USC offense, and we'll get back to their defense here in a moment. Wayman Jordan being out for 4 to 6 weeks sucks. Their star tailback, he had broken out to start this season. Comparisons to Bucky Irving. Dude is a fun player to watch, out 4 to 6 weeks, especially on the road. If we're just talking in the vacuum of this specific spot against Notre Dame, I think you could find success throwing the football, but having that counterpunch would be critical. And I think it's vital, and I think it's going to make the difference between my prediction. Because it's not only Wayman Jordan, they also lost another tailback for a long time. They're thin at the tailback position. Not to say there's not talented guys that could step up. It's always next man up, but it sucks. Because I think this would have been a much closer matchup in terms of making a prediction if I had Wayman Jordan playing on Saturday. I think USC, if I'm to answer the question at the very beginning, do I think they could replicate it? I don't think so. Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price are going to test you in a different way, man. These guys with Justice Haynes and obviously Marshall, those are very good tailbacks. But they're going to test you in a different way because they're going to be at home. And I think that they could test you in a multitude of different ways with a competent quarterback in CJ Carr. That's not to say anything about Bryce Underwood, but I think right now the wide receivers at Notre Dame are going to be much more of a threat to where you can't just sell out for the run. Michigan right now, they can make the forward pass. They probably are going to drop it. I think this USC defense is going to be asked to handle a lot more than what they did last week, paired with the fact that they're going on the road, paired with the fact that they had success. Can they actually replicate it? Because that is a different kind of hurdle than actually doing it just on a one-off. And I think that Notre Dame needs this more. As much as I think USC is a very good program, and I think they're still a dark horse to potentially backdoor themselves into the college football playoff, this wouldn't be a conference loss. I will also say the fact that this rivalry is even in question to not be played anymore. I did not forget that storyline over the summer, guys. That's egregious. The fact that USC and Notre Dame may not play football in the coming seasons is a travesty. It's one of the most frustrating things about the transfer portal and NIL and conference realignment. As we shift into this new modern era, these types of rivalries should not be in question. Hell, even Bedlam, Oklahoma State and Oklahoma, the Apple Cup, Washington State, Oregon State, none of these should ever be in question to be taken out of the sport because it's what makes it so special. But to get back on track, I think Notre Dame wins this game. If Wayman Jordan was a part of this USC program for this game, I might be talking a little bit differently. Maybe that momentum is a real thing. Not to say USC's got no chance, but I just think when I look at the team that needs it more, the team that's going to be able to stress a potential weakness the most, especially going back-to-back weeks, it's a brutal back-to-back between two very highly potent rushing offenses. Now you're having to face a rushing offense that has a pretty competent quarterback in terms of throwing the football. I do think USC is going to find some explosives. I do think that they're going to end up winning that matchup between the secondary, but I will also say Marcus Freeman, it's one thing that we had questions maybe the Notre Dame secondary has been playing good, but we're still questioning if it's a weakness. No, we've seen them play bad. They've tasted their own blood. I guarantee you they've had this circled as a potential bounce back, very similar to what Michigan and USC's matchup was, where USC has had this circled as a bounce back spot for them. I think the inverse when we're talking about the Notre Dame defense and their secondary versus the wide receivers and Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon. So I think USC is going to put up a good fight. They're going to have some explosives, but I don't think that they're going to put up enough consistent drives. And I don't think that their defense is going to get them off the field enough to win this football game. So give me Notre Dame to win. Give me Notre Dame to cover. It might end up being a best bet of the weekend. Ole Miss UGA. Georgia, they got College Game Day coming to town. I really begin to wonder, I'm someone that does lean towards the SEC. I think the SEC is the best conference of football. I lived in the South my entire life, so take that for what you will. I can even admit the Big Ten and the SEC bias for College Game Day. It's unfortunate. We'll cover the Holy War on Thursday because I want to spend some time researching it and really understanding the rivalry through and through. They should be at the Holy War, man. To me, at least, College Game Day is more about exploring every part of the country. It's what makes college football special, is knowing that the tailgating, the fan experience, the culture of Pullman, Washington, all the way down to Tallahassee, Florida, and just seeing those experiences, knowing that there's a lot of people in the United States that will never be able to go experience that and just get a taste of it. People can talk about, Pat McAfee and College Game Day all they want and the problems or the things that they have against him. Listen, I'm not here to talk about that, but the energy that he brings paired with the show, like, it's so frustrating because I see the potential of what the show could be post, the BCS era and then the 4-team college football playoff era, and coach is now gone. And you're looking at College Game Day and you're like, they have the ingredients there, but they keep going back to Georgia. They've gone to Georgia every single year since 2019. Understandably so. Georgia's a damn good team. They're always going to have highly talented matchups, but it'd be really fun to see them go be with BYU in Utah. Go see what that is. I want to see what that game day experience is. So it's very frustrating to see that. So we could dive into the game, though. What do you think you know about the Ole Miss Rebels? You saw them at number 4 last week. I believe they're number 5 or 6 this week. They had a struggling win against Washington State, a team that they should not be in a dogfight and down against. And it's one of those things where a lot of people chalked it up to Lane Kiffin kind of does this. You see it once every season. Who knows? Maybe they've been prepping for Georgia for 2 weeks and thought they could sleepwalk into this game. They end up getting in a deficit and they finally wake up. I honestly don't think that's the worst theory in the world. But the problem I have against this game against Georgia is a couple of different factors. Now, I will say, I think this game might be, especially in the first half, closer than people expect. And it's for 2 main statistical points. Number 1, Georgia's pass defense is not good. They are facing a good passing offense, whether it's Austin Simmons or Trinidad Chambly. It's going to be a good passing offense with Lane Kiffin. Then you have a bad rushing defense with Ole Miss facing a good rushing offense, or an improved one at that, because the bar was in hell at this point with Georgia last year, but they are a more than competent rushing offense. That dynamic right there is going to cause for at least a close start. What's going to have Georgia pull away in this game is the fact that it's a revenge spot. You can't ignore it. It's a thing in college football. Kirby Smart doesn't forget that they lost against Jackson Dart last year in Oxford. It is Kirby Smart being the better head coach versus Lane Kiffin, a guy that's going to be a little bit better about making adjustments. He's going to make the better decisions. And for the fact that at the end of the day, it's at UGA. And we can talk about, well, Bama walked in there and dominated them. Bama owns Georgia. Ole Miss doesn't own Georgia. Ole Miss got a win against Georgia last year, but they don't own them. And I do think Ole Miss kind of is flying a little bit too close to the sun. They kind of do for a drop-off like this, a little reality check. Not to say that their fans have been boastful and saying that we're going to go win the national championship. Trinidad Chambly's the greatest quarterback ever. No one's saying that. But I think it's almost like a well-known thought that Ole Miss is overrated. It's a well-known thought. They are way too close to number one overall. There's a lot of teams, I think, in that top 10 that are a better football team than Ole Miss in 2025. They got to win against LSU, but the big test is this weekend because they have to go on the road for the first time since they played Kentucky on the road in week 2. And if I got to explain to you the jump in difficulty from going to Kentucky and playing Mark Stoops, which, by the way, for Ole Miss and Georgia included, tend to struggle with, but I will also say making that jump for an average coach or any old coach going from that to Athens is a jump. If I have to explain that more than I've already done that, I don't know where to help you. And I think Georgia was kind of slapped in the face with a reality check that maybe that their prep is not good enough. Kirby Smart said in his press conference, Auburn threw things at us that we were not prepared for. And Kirby's supposed to be the prep guy. He's supposed to be the best in the country. You don't think that he is doubling and tripling down on his process and being more attentive to detail, knowing that he's about to go face Lane Kiffin? Because I bet Lane takes a note that says, well, if Hugh Freeze is able to implement and install something, sure, they had a bye week to do it, but they practically, and it wouldn't shock me if they treated Washington State like a bye week. We can install something that Kirby's not prepared for. And I think, yes, Ole Miss is going to find success, more than likely throwing the football, creating some explosives. But I think this is going to be one of those games that Georgia sinks their teeth in. Their rushing attack, some of the weapons on the outside, I think this is going to be a bounce back game, a reality check to the rest of college football that Georgia is still a national championship contender. This is the type of game that they lock in and prove that. So I'm picking Georgia to cover. I picked Georgia to win. I think Georgia could win by 10 plus. I think this is going to be one of the games that gets hyped up, but then we get to the fourth quarter and it was like, why did we hype this up? We knew that Ole Miss was overrated. I don't see Ole Miss finding a way to win this game, truthfully. And lastly, upset pick of the week. There's a lot of upsets in week 8 to potentially happen. I mean, across the board, we've seen UCLA pull off an upset against Penn State. James Franklin gets fired 2 weeks after being a top 5 team. Anything can happen in the sport. And honestly, there's a couple contenders here. I think of Texas A&M at Arkansas. That could be an upset. 7.5 point favorites for a team that's 2-4, going and hosting the number 4 team in the country. Team that has not played a road game since week 3. You could talk yourself into an upset there with Bobby Petrino and this offense potentially exploiting Texas A&M's defense that has played very well, but maybe they have an off night. Marcel Reed, Le'Veon Moss is out for a significant amount of time. There's a lot of ingredients there for a potential Arkansas win. But the one that I'm going to pick is Oklahoma at South Carolina. If you are a college football fan, you need to either be aware or educated of Cocktober. The South Carolina Gamecocks in October always pull off one upset, one surprise. It happens. Trust me, it just happens. They scare a lot of teams. Now, going into Death Valley at night against LSU, even the score was close. It wasn't really that close. That wasn't their moment. That wasn't their time to shine. This is where they shine. They host Oklahoma. Oklahoma comes in limping after being battered and bruised in the Red River rivalry. A lot of people may think of it as a bounce back spot. We don't know if John Mateer, especially playing an entire football game, maybe that prolonged how much his recovery time is. And do we really feel like we know outside of John Mateer heroics what their identity is? And you're about to have to go on the road against a South Carolina team that's desperate for an upset and try to figure out your identity? No, you do not want to do that. Their defense is still good, though. Their defense is still damn good. But with a quarterback like Lenora Sellers, doesn't matter how damn good your defense is if he's just going to go and wreck your entire Saturday, because I've been waiting for the Saturday where he goes and runs for 157, 3 touchdowns. I wonder when their offensive coordinator just kind of pulls the plug on having him be a drop back passer and we just have to let it rip. And it could be this game against Oklahoma, because there's nothing that schematically Brent Venables could prepare for to handle a Lenore Sellers breaking off 3 tackles and running for 60 yards down the right sideline. There's nothing you could prepare for that. And you have Nick Harbor on the outside. Listen, you could point to the fact that Oklahoma's resume is the better team. You could point to the fact that Oklahoma should be the more desperate team as they go into the back half of their schedule. Weird things happen with South Carolina in October, man. They just do. And this seems like the prime spot for them to do it. An emotional loss to Texas, a team that has beaten you back-to-back years. You cannot walk into this game lethargically or they will get you. And so I really do think my pick here, especially knowing that Texas found success running the football, that's the last kind of ingredient that you want to give to a South Carolina team that will run QB power to the right side 3 times in a row. They'll run the football. And if they find success doing it, they're going to do it until they win that football game. And, you know, Trey Wisner and Arch Manning found just enough success to do it. Who knows? Who knows? Now, I could be completely wrong. John Mateer looks fantastic. This is his bounce back game, and they go run through the rest of their schedule, which would be shocking knowing how difficult Oklahoma's schedule is. Or maybe Oklahoma flew a little bit too close to the sun, and it's time for them to kind of get their reality check as they stumble into the back half of their schedule. And I think that might be more likely. I don't see them as a college football playoff lock just because their offensive identity is too reliant on the heroics of the quarterback. Very similar to South Carolina last year with Sellers. The heroics of the quarterback is not an identity that you want to live and die by, because more times than not, you may end up dying by it. So that is going to be my upset pick of the week. Let me know your thoughts. Who is your big upset pick of the weekend? And we will get to you on Thursday. Thursday, we're going to go through the Holy War. We're going to go through some of the other major matchups because, like I said, this is a loaded slate. We got Big 12, Arizona State, and Utah. The only reason why I held that one off was primarily because I want to wait for the health of Sam Leavitt. And we may talk some Heisman as well. I think we got to do an update on the Heisman. But with that in mind, guys, thank you guys so much for watching the Stadium Pulse. If you love college football, you've come to the right place. If I haven't gotten your sub now, I'll get it one day. So with that in mind, thank you guys so much and have a fantastic rest of your day.
I try to be